It's the biggest game of the year, the bar is roaring, and Sam is the only person not looking at the screen. A stranger just hugged the man next to him over a goal. Sam felt nothing, not contempt, just nothing, and quietly wondered why a thing that moves an entire room leaves him completely untouched. Everyone assumes Sam just doesn't get it. The truth is the opposite. Sam gets something about himself that most of the room never will. If you've ever stood in a room full of people losing their minds over a match and felt like you were watching from behind glass, this is for you. You're not broken, you're not antisocial, and there's nothing missing in you. Your wiring is just pointed somewhere else, and by the end you'll see exactly where. Let's get into it. Start with a thing nobody says out loud: sports fandom is, at its core, tribalism, and that's not an insult, it's psychology. Decades ago, a researcher named Unri Tajfel showed how instantly and powerfully humans split into us and them, and how much identity we draw from the group we belong to. A team hands you a ready-made tribe, a color to wear, a city to defend, 1,000 instant brothers in a bar. For a lot of people, that belonging is the whole point. You just don't run on that. The pull of a borrowed tribe, strangers united by a logo, doesn't reach you because you don't get your sense of who you are from a group you were assigned. That's not coldness. It's a self that's defined from the inside, so it doesn't need a jersey to tell it where it belongs. Here's the second piece, and it's the sharpest one. In the 1970s, a psychologist named Robert Cialdini gave a name to something every fan does: basking in reflected glory. He noticed that after a win, fans say we won, and after a loss, they lost. When the team wins, the fans' own self-esteem measurably rises. Their mood, their week, sometimes their sense of worth, rides on the result of a game played by people they will never meet. You never signed that contract. You never handed your self-worth to 11 strangers and a scoreboard. So a result that can make a grown man's whole weekend can't touch yours, because your wins and losses are your own. That's not missing out. That's keeping the keys to your own mood. The third reason is about where the thrill lives. For the fan, the match is a vicarious win, the rush of a victory they didn't actually earn but get to feel as if they did. It's real, and it's powerful. But for someone like Sam, a borrowed victory feels strangely hollow. You'd rather have one small real win of your own, something you built, learned, or finished, than 1,000 someone else handed you through a screen. Your reward system is tuned to the direct, not the second-hand. The fourth piece is the one that gets you judged the most. Sport is the great social shortcut. It's the easiest small talk on earth, the instant bridge between strangers, the safe thing to bond over with a coworker or a father-in-law. By stepping outside it, you give that shortcut up, and yes, that can be lonely in a culture that runs on it. But you tend to build connection the slower, realer way, over actual shared interests, real conversations, the people who match your specific wiring rather than the nearest available crowd. And here's the part people miss entirely: it's not that you lack passion. It's that you refuse to be only a spectator of someone else's. Look closely, and people like Sam almost always have their own arena, a craft, a skill, a subject, a game they actually play. Somewhere they're the one in the ring, not the one in the stands. The intensity everyone else pours into a team, you pour into something where the win is yours to earn. You didn't opt out of devotion. You just aimed it at a field where your effort actually changes the score. So here's the reframe, the part that should change how you see yourself. The world looks at Sam and assumes he's missing the gene everyone else has. He isn't. He simply never rented his identity out. He never outsourced his tribe, his self-esteem, or his Sunday afternoons to a team that doesn't know he exists. While the bar's mood is decided by a referee, Sam's mood is decided by Sam. That's not a man who doesn't get it. That's a man who quietly kept something most people give away without noticing: the right to feel his own feelings, about his own life, on his own terms. The game ends. The bar erupts or it groans. And Sam finishes his drink, says his goodbyes, and walks out into an evening that is entirely, unmistakably his own, to spend on something that will actually be his. So tell me in the comments, are you a Sam? Was it the tribe you never needed, the self-worth you never handed over, the borrowed thrill that felt hollow, or just the lonely cost of skipping the shortcut? I read every single one. And if this was you, there's a quieter cousin of this same trait worth understanding next: the psychology of people who win quietly, and never need anyone to see it. And there it is, plenty more hidden in plain sight. I'll see you there.